have the very pleasure to present Shruti Chandra. Shruti is a postdoctoral fellow in the Social and Intelligent Robotics Research Laboratory at University of Waterloo in Canada. She holds a joint PhD degree in Electrical and Computer Engineering from EPFL in Switzerland and Instituto Superior Técnico in Lisbon. Her research focus on social, assistive, and educational robots. And today, Shruti is going to talk about how to use social robots to foster children's learning. And I'm very looking forward for this talk. And I would like to give the floor to Shruti. I'm just going to stop sharing my slides.
Hey, thanks, Joanna. Thank you for having me here. I'm gonna share my slides. Are my slides visible to you? Okay. So thank you everyone for being here, and thank you very much for inviting me. It's a great pleasure to be here. Those who do not know, my name is Shruti Chandra. I'm a postdoctoral fellow at Social and Intelligent Robotics Research Laboratory in the University of Waterloo, Canada. And I'm working here with Professor Kirsten Dortenhan. And today, I will be presenting about child-robot interaction, learning and playing with social robots. So in today's presentation, I'll talk about my experience and learning during my research in the field of child-robot interaction. I'll be discussing about different roles of social robots that we assign while conducting these studies, and how children perceive these robots, and highlight a few challenges in the field of child-robot interaction that I have experienced during the conduction of studies. So let's go forward. So as we know, as a social robot, it's a technology that we incorporate mainly to benefit children. So social robots, as robotics researchers, we have been incorporating them with children, not only to benefit them in terms of learning or healthcare scenarios, but also in game and play scenarios. So in this way that we try to assign and seek different ways of assigning roles to social robots that can be useful for children, especially in the interaction, meaningful interaction with children. So why social robots are good? One of the advantages that I see for social robots is they excel at repetitive type of tasking. So I think that they can be leveraged and well applicable in such scenarios where repetitive skills are needed. And of course, this is not the only benefit of using social robot. For example, during my PhD, I was working on a project called Cowriter, where the general aim of the research was how can we incorporate social robots to benefit children in the acquisition of handwriting skills, meaning how can we help children to improve their handwriting skills. And in that, in one of the initial studies in the project, what I have used is a social robot. Is I have put the social robot in a role of an instructor, of a facilitator. So here, the goal of the study was to how children would assess their peers when a social robot is mediating a writing session. The study was conducted through a Wizard of Oz method. We had 6 to 8 years old children. And the role of the robot was mainly to facilitate the flow of interaction, to help them in instructing the task that they are supposed to do. And if they have any questions, they could ask the robot, but there was no other human facilitator or researcher present in the room. So why we chose the role of a learner in this study? The reason was that we were inspired by the traditional ways of instructing lessons that a human teacher gives to his or her students, and that's why we wanted to see whether children would accept the robot in a role of an instructor or not. So that's the reason we employed this role here. Similarly, in another study, um, we put the role of a robot as a learner. So here, this study was also conducted under the same project, Cowriter. Here, the goal of the study was to investigate the effect of different learning competencies of the robot on children's learning. We had this fully autonomous study with 7 to 9 years old children, and the role of the student here was a teacher. The inspiration for choosing the role of this robot as a learner was because of we wanted to employ the method which is called learning by teaching method, where the sense is when you teach someone, you learn more. So here we wanted children to teach the robot how to write, and thereby the child would learn by correcting the errors of the robot, and would learn by unconsciously or consciously. Um, so the inspiration came from learning by teaching method. Um, um, in the same line, we conducted another study here in the University of Waterloo at CERN Lab. This was before COVID. This project was about intergenerational gameplay interaction, um, under the supervision of Professor Kirsten and done by a master student whom I was supervising. So here the goal of the project was to foster intergenerational interaction between grandparent and grandchildren using gameplay scenarios. The study was again conducted through Wizard of Oz strategy, and we did this study with 6 to 10 years old children. Here, often we see in HRI that the focus in the interaction is the robot. But here in this study, we wanted to focus the interaction between the grandparent and grandchild. So the focus was not on the robot. What we did here, we didn't know how the participants would accept the robot in which role. So we put the robot just as an observer. So in the first phase of the study, what happened that a human mediator facilitated the interaction where a grandparent and a grandchild performs or actually played a tangram physical game with each other. And the second phase of the study, Pepper Robot appeared there, and then it introduced itself, and then just observed the game that they both were playing. So here we put the robot just as an observer, and we wanted to see whether how would the participants envision the role of that robot. Um, so as we see, the role of social robots in child-robot interaction scenarios is, at least in my experience, what I have experienced so far is we always assign the role of social robots by seeing the goal of the study. It depends on the goal of the study, and that definitely impacts the interaction between a child and a robot, and perhaps the perceptions of children towards the robot. Um, Besides that, in such interactions where a child and a robot is interacting with each other, how do children perceive the abilities and behavior of a robot? How these perceptions change over time when they interact multiple times with the robot? Um, in that sense, I also explored a bit about children's perceptions of robots in these studies. Clearly, children's perceptions provides insight about their understanding of robots and, in general, the interaction between a child and a robot. Um, Children's perceptions can be maybe accurate, may not be accurate, and may be binded by the limited understanding of technology that they have, or their cognitive abilities. Um, what I found in all these studies, that children, throughout the sessions, throughout the interactions, that children always listen the robot. They may not find the robot intelligent, but they always listen to the robot. They followed the instructions of the robot. For example, in one of these studies, children gave corrective feedback to each other, meaning they provided how well their peers were doing regarding the writing activity. When the robot asked, do you think that your peer is doing well? Then the children actually gave corrective feedback in the presence of the robot. They also gave self-disclosure to the robot when the robot asked, oh, what's your favorite flavor of ice cream, or what's your favorite color? They could perceive the robot's competencies, whether the robot was learning or not learning, or whether the robot was improving during the learning session. So they were able to perceive the robot's competency. Other than that, even the robot was not learning, and even if they were aware that the robot was not learning, they could perceive the robot's intelligence. So children are aware of many aspects of robots. They perceive the robots. They can perceive the robots' competencies, and these perceptions can be accurate, may not be accurate, but whatever it is, it clearly shows that it's bounded by their cognitive abilities, their understanding of the technology that they interact with, and they envision many things in the interaction. I have an interesting video for you. So I'm gonna share this video. This video is in Portuguese language, so you may not understand the language, but it's fine. Just pay attention to the behavior of children and the robot and their gestures. For the privacy purposes, I blurred the faces of the children. I wish I didn't. I mean, I should not. I had to do that because the expressions that children are doing are very interesting. But anyways, I had to hide them. So let's see this video together. And I'll be going through the video.
Cada diz que existe o tesouro.
Vira-te para cima. Oh. Agora levanta-te. Olha.
Sim.
So as you have seen that when the robot takes a bit of time in answering their question or in providing the instruction, that there is some problem that the robot is not able to understand, and they use their microphone closely to them and try to talk twice, or even every time they think that by moving close to the microphone it will work.
Ok. Opa. Ok. Está bem. Não. Não sabes. Não sabes o que é. Que maravilha. O meu planeta traz numa nave espacial super veloz.
So as you have seen that that study was we conducted through a Wizard of Oz strategy approach, and at one time there was could be any problem technical, and the robot got freeze for a second or 2 seconds. And then they were clearly thinking that even the technical problems that the robot was having, they thought that it was voluntary, like that behavior the robot was doing, deliberately. And they were trying to, they are curious, children are curious, they try to see whether the camera is working, why the robot is doing, and simply they are having also fun.
Os vossos desenhos são tão lindos. Qual é o teu nome?
Ricardo.
Eu vai falar para que esteja igual ao do papel azul.
Porquê é que
Estas letras engraçadas formam a palavra gelais. E tu, Miguel?
Tesouro.
Vocês têm ideias mesmo geniais. Agora vou escrever a letra T.
you might have noticed that it was the first session that we did. It was very strange for me because I was not in the room itself, and you might have noticed that the child was actually trying to twist and turn the robot's arm, also trying to make it not move its head. So out of curiosity, children do these things, and I remember when I was hearing these sounds, I was very confused. I thought, what's happening? I didn't want to interrupt the session, so I didn't enter. But just after the session completed, I checked the video immediately, and I found out that actually the child was trying to break the robot somehow. But these kind of things happens. I'm very sure you might have also experienced these kind of interactions.
Qual é o teu nome?
Manuel. Olá.
Meu nome é Guilmar e eu sou um robô. Qual é o teu nome? Que nome tão curioso.
So as you have seen in the last clip, that the jerk emotions of the gestures were making the children scared. Even they somehow they understood that the robot is mechanical, or maybe its camera is not working and the robot is not behaving and responding at the right time. But at least even with that kind of understanding, when the robot asked, "What's your name?" The child said, "Ricardo." So we seems like children's perceptions are there, but they understand, they perceive the robots in a different way. They are different. The interaction is completely, not completely, or to a certain level, is very different from the interaction that we have in adult robot interaction versus child robot interaction. So here are some open questions. Some of you might be working on these research questions. How do we create social robots that are robust enough to interact with children? Children are curious. We cannot change, it would be difficult to change the behaviors of children, but we can definitely create and build robots that are strong enough to interact with children. How do we improve robots' understanding and awareness of the environment? Should they be knowing what the child is doing, not only the learning activity or the face recognition or voice recognition, but should they also know more than that, and how appropriately they should react in these kind of circumstances? Should social robots be given specific personalities and intentions? Because if a child is touching, and even if a robot is aware that the child is touching, how should they respond to it? Should they have intentions for the unexpected behavior or interaction happen during the interaction? There are also certainly ethical issues are involved when the robots keep on advancing. So this is the presentation that I wanted to talk about regarding child-robot interaction. Currently, I'm also co-designing a tool with integrating human-robot interaction and gameplay activities. So this tool is inspired by, it's a canvas. It's inspired by a business model of canvas used in management and business areas. And I'm co-designing this tool and trying to validate this tool with the HRI researchers who are involved in gameplay scenarios. So if you're interested in using this tool, and if you're interested in giving feedback, please let me know. I would be really happy to share the information about this tool to all of you. The main goal of this tool is to help researchers in order to conduct their human-robot interaction studies involved with game scenarios in a more simplistic and comprehensive way. That's about the tool. I'm also editing 2 special issues. If you're interested in publishing your study or submitting your article, let me know about it. Thank you.
Cool, thank you.
Thank you, Shruti, for your talk. So I guess we enter the Q&A. So we have a question in the chat. I'm not sure if you just want to unmute yourself, or I can just read it. So Bahar says, thank you for the great talk. As a suggestion for the future, maybe you can replace faces with smileys, emojis in the videos.
Thank you.
Mine is more of a suggestion than thank you to Shruti for the great talk. I can even do my video. Thank you, Shruti, for the great talk. It was great to hear about your research. But I have been seeing that recently in the HRI videos that if you put a smiley instead of the child's face, then we can actually see it. It's easier. Or maybe you can use Adobe Premiere Pro, which lets you blur enough to hide an identity, but doesn't blur the expression or something. It was great. It was a great talk.
Yeah, thank you.
I do have a question. So what were the other effects of personalization that you saw? You saw it for the effects in terms of learning, yes, but what were the other social types of effects for personalization?
I didn't explore personalization, not in terms of social interaction, but I explored a bit in terms of learning interaction. So in one of the studies that I did, I had a personalized condition where the robot was actually adapting the performance of the child's writing abilities. But I know that you're very much interested in personalizations thing, and I know that you are curious about that. So I think there are a lot of things that we realize for personalization, but I think you know more than me. But I also think that I'm not right now sure that personalization is the only way of um, of uh, of an enriching interaction between anyone, human-robot interaction between a human or between an adult or a robot, or a child or a robot, because I think that many times we have group interactions, either in classrooms or in I'm talking from the learning perspective because I have researched that area more. So in classrooms, when children interact with the teacher, with teachers, unless it's one-to-one instruction, I think children often have a tendency to accept others. I think others' behavior. For example, a teacher could say my name and I would be happy that a teacher is calling me with my name. That's a personalized behavior. But when a teacher is saying instructing to the whole class or interacting with the whole class, I'm not sure if we need personalization all the time. That's one of the things I think, that it's not necessary all the time. Perhaps in certain interaction, it can benefit.
I agree, of course, the personalization is not always necessary. You need to know, you need to generalize and then personalize. That's what I think. So you know everybody, but also add that a bit of personalization to improve the interaction for long-term interactions, especially. But thank you very much.
Okay, so I think now I'm going to read a question from the chat. So Sandra has a question. I'm not sure, Sandra, if you just want to take the floor, but I can read it. She asks, can autonomous interaction of robot have greater interest for the child regardless of its appearance?
I'm not sure if autonomous interaction have greater interest compared to what, like non-autonomous, without a pause?
Yes.
Okay. No, I'm not sure about that, because we can do a lot of interesting studies with the Visadophos approach, because simply we can actually manipulate a lot of things, in Visadophos studies. And in autonomous, we are bounded by the technology. We cannot do, robot cannot perceive a lot of things. But in Visadophos studies, we can actually make the other person fool, and the human can do a lot of perception, task, and pretending to be a robot. So the interest, I don't think that it would be more in autonomous way, either its appearance or otherwise.
So we can, if I can read another more, we have another one in the chat. Aishwarya, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing the name correctly, so I'm sorry if I'm not, asks, how do you navigate ethical concerns while trying to build a bond with the child?
Well, it's a debate. First, we need to decide what are the ethical concerns. Do we have standards for that? If we are talking about the privacy issue, if we are talking about the data collection, so it depends on what kind of ethical concerns. Or if we are talking about if a robot is behaving in a certain way that it shouldn't behave with children, then it depends on specifically on the ethical issue itself. But considering the developments of AI and technology, I think we need to be mindful for ethics. We need to take steps by consciously, I would say. And I think it may influence a bond if you are, imagine if we define an ethical issue, not collecting the child's expression while interacting. And if child's expression is important for data collection to behave in a more engaging way, then in that sense, it will impact the bond, because our algorithm, if the algorithm is designed based on the facial expressions and the bonding, you know what I mean? So yeah, it is a big question to ask.
Yeah, I think it's kind of tricky, and also depends on the country where we run the study as well, because you have to include the parents in the decision process, and sometimes some of them may understand or not what's going on and what are these kind of studies about, and that has a big weight. And then you cannot exclude the child. So yeah, there are a lot of challenges associated with
including consent of the child. So what I mean to say is, if a child is consenting now at the age of 6 years old, when the child would become 16 years of age, would it be, I mean, a child could say at that time, well, I was 6 years old when I gave the assent. You should not store or for how long we are going to store their data. There are so many issues in ethical. So I think that we clearly need to define what are the ethical issues, and if we need to also work on the ethical standards.
Yeah. So I guess we have another question. I see a raised hand. Please go ahead.
Oh yeah. First of all, Shruti, great talk. It was very informative, especially I like the dichotomy of curiosity versus the judgment, which children are more curious, whereas people are more judgmental when the robot fails. But I have more question on the ethical side of it. Like, one of the things which you were mentioning is like, robot is being left alone with the children to learn. What are the long-term consequences of that? So one of the things which we are looking at, like when people are left alone with Alexa, Siri, there is this negative biases, like they tend to become very racist because AI run things and there is no supervision also. So do you think this removal of human element from the interaction will make people more towards some negative behavior which they are trying to go? One of the behavior which I saw is like they were trying to break the robot in the videos. Do you think there is a possibility, like if you remove the human element during the interaction, children will tend towards those bad behaviors because there is no accountability or human component attached to it?
Yeah. So I would like to give this answer. Thank you, Akib. Nice to see you after 2 months. Thank you for your question. So this answer is a bit personalized. I think that, at least in my experience, children are developing their cognitive abilities while growing up. In my perception, I think that human technology, the human being as a human being, it's the greatest technology that we have on this planet. No other technology is as sophisticated as we are. So removing human interaction while they're growing up would not, in my perception, it wouldn't be a good idea. We should not do that because simply because the nature of human beings is not like that. But so I don't think that we should remove that. But when it comes to like half of my studies I have done with children where researchers, like most of them, researchers were not present in the room. So in the Wizard of Oz study, they were watching, of course, but in the autonomous, I was not watching. And in these kind of interactions, because it was a learning interaction, it was a repetitive kind of task that they were doing, handwriting, it is a learning. And in this kind of educational purpose where they are interacting with a robot for 10 to 15 minutes for a learning task, I don't see any disadvantage of being alone with a robot. But when you say robots, children are growing only with the technology and they don't have any friends or family members, or they have only one parent and rest of the technology, I would question that. I don't think that it's good for their well-being in general. I don't think that we should remove human touch. One of the basic reason is that technology is not as sophisticated as humans.
Just to follow up on that, so the idea which I was going towards is more like teachers, like I'm thinking of robots as a teachers right now, and teachers kind of inculcate some sort of behaviors, ethics, and values, even if they are teaching us English or writing a certain stuff. And if we are learning from robots, do you think like they should also have those kind of personalities or values or virtues when they're teaching? Because if you remove those values, then people will be learning without those.
See, there's a lot of research going on this. I'm not an expertise on this, so I don't have this expertise. But what I can say here is, when we say about ethics, when we say talk about values, when we talk about what is the other word that you used? Virtue. These are the qualities of a human being. These are not a quality of a technology. You can make a technology like that, but if a robot would start saying that, like there's already a debate. If robot is saying I'm emotional, robot is not emotional. Robot can show a sad emotion, but robot is not feeling emotional. Okay, so I think perhaps the better way is we redefine, restructure the language that we use with a technology. So robot can show the ethics, virtue, values, all these things, but not by claiming that the robot is doing that. It can use the different wordings by saying humans are, as a human being, or using teachers or some other human personality in that. But again, it's a area of discussion and debate.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thanks for the input.
I think we have a raised hand before 2 questions in the chat. Nice to see you, Daniel.
Hi guys, hi all. Hi Shruti, can you hear me first? Yes, I think so. Okay. Yeah, congratulations for your work. I'm a huge fan, to be honest. And I saw that you investigated the role of grandparents in the interaction of their grandchildren with the robot. And I was wondering if you also investigated the role of teachers, of these students' teachers in the interaction, and being among them during the interaction, and what is your perception or guess about it?
So I'll start from the first experience that I had with a teacher. I was doing the experiment in Switzerland in EPFL, and I went to Geneva to conduct a study. And then there was a teacher. We were planning the pilot study, and that teacher came to me, and I was working with my postdoc, and she came to both of us. And then she asked on the dining table, we were having lunch with her, and she asked me a question: do you think that the robots are going to replace our jobs? See, so this is a fear that people have. And just to give you an example, a lot of jobs have already been replaced by machines so far. So I think that, in my opinion right now, the tasks that are repetitive, which so for the handwriting skills, see, in my case, when I was inquiring teachers, I asked them that, are you able to give the instructions to children for improving their handwriting skills, one-to-one interaction? Can you provide these instructions? She said, no, I don't have time. This is the case for most of the schools where the repetitive tasks are involved. They are not giving one-to-one instruction. So the children's parents have to find someone else, or children's parents have to do these things at their home. So I think that again, for these kind of tasks, we can definitely put robots as machines, not a replacement as a teacher, but as a tool for a teacher. We can definitely do it. But in the next coming, I feel that in the next 10 or 15 years, I perceive that probably some of the teaching jobs can be taken by robots. And I don't see, I think that it will happen eventually with the advancement of AI and machine learning and in technology in general. But again, the ethics come, and the society has to decide if they want to decide.
Just taking advantage of my question, do you see a good way of attracting teachers to this robot children interaction, and how it could be done?
I think in my case, I always talk about the repetitive thing. So in the last study when I did, I asked, it was a kind of a lot of feedback from the teacher herself. And she told me, it's a very interesting activity. We don't provide any this kind of instructions. But I think that it's possible. If they are not able to give one-to-one instruction, why not using a technology? But if you ask me, should we have a robot to replace the job of a postdoctoral fellow? As a person, I would say no. And is the same feeling for a teacher? No, you should not take their jobs. But I think we can definitely fit robots in teaching environments by talking more about ethical issues, and this is one of the ethical issue. And I think as a society, we need to discuss about these things.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
We have another question in the chat. Thank you, Daniel. So it's from Dang Tran. I will just read it. The question is, will the future of your project focus on analyzing responses of children through robots, or improving the performance of current HRIs so that children can interact better?
So I'm not doing that project anymore. I completed my PhD. That was a project during my PhD. So I'm not working on that project, but I think other researchers are still working on the project. So I don't know if I'm not doing this project anymore. But will the future project focus on analyzing response of children? No, I'm not aware of this research, and I'm not doing this. But definitely analyzing response of children, observational data always help to improve child-robot interaction.
So we have another question from Gerardo, but I think that may have been covered. I'm not sure. What do you think, Gerardo?
Geraz, are you here?
Yes, sorry. Yeah, actually, it was, I think, broadly covered while answering Daniel's questions. It was about the place, or what, how do you see the future of education regarding robots and technology, which what would be the place in the education of children in the future?
I think that there is a place of robots and technology. Inevitably, we will have better technology, and technology will keep on growing. So I don't think that we can remove technology in any way. But yes, we can incorporate technology in a bit more conscious way, and a bit more in a way that it benefits not only the people who are developing technology, not only the financial benefits, but also the benefits it can provide to the well-being of children. Because either the technology is for the children or for anyone, it should benefit people. It should be for the well-being of people. That's my opinion, and that should happen. It's going to happen.
We have a raised hand from Natalia.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hi, thank you, Shruti, for your presentation. I just have a question concerning Wizard of Oz and autonomous systems. And you mentioned that you have had experience with the two modalities. And I want to know if you saw some kind of difference when you were debriefing the children after the experiment. And if so, maybe if you manage with some kind of the children's reception of concerning the robots agency, for instance, when there was the Wizard of Oz, especially that.
So I ran different studies, but I think other researchers were also involved while for being a wizard. But to answer your question, when we did this Wizard of Oz study, we had a script for all the interactions. So we didn't introduce any behavior of a robot which was like unexpected, or which was according to the momentary behavior of a child. So it was not designed like that. Whatever we designed, it was already pre-scripted. Everything was even the children were asking questions. The wizard didn't answer their questions. They kept following the design script. So no, I didn't. If we follow the same script, and if we do autonomous interaction, well, I didn't compare the same study with both modes, but I did both two different studies separately in each mode. So in this case, no, I don't think that there will be a difference if we follow the pre-scripted thing.
Yeah, thank you. But I think maybe my question is more about what do you think will be children's perceptions after you actually debrief children and you show them that actually the robot was teleoperated and is more related to this, maybe children's deception concerning the robot's agency, and the difference between this perception and when, for example, you said, okay, in the case of the study that the robot was autonomous. And when you debrief children, you say, okay, the robot was autonomous. So it's more like if you think in these two scenarios, how this debriefing will affect children's perceptions of the robot after the interaction.
Yeah, okay, thank you. I think the debriefing will affect, for giving you exact answer, I need to do a study for that. But just to give you one example that in the autonomous study, I did 2 studies which were very similar, but in one of the study, I just I did a few changes in the interaction of the robot. So in one of the study, the robot was explicitly saying that showing its grades to the children. And in another study, the robot was not showing its grades to the children, like the grades that it was improving by learning from the child. Just by doing this difference, children had different perceptions of the robot. So what I'm trying to say that if you debrief children are not children are intelligent. They listen and they hear and they understand those things. And so when the grades were not shown, children were clearly able to perceive the differences between the learning competencies of the robot. So I think debriefing will definitely help children. Also priming, if it's done in a proper way. For example, in one of my studies, it's about perceptions of children. So normally we know that in HRI, if we ask a question to a person or to a child, we know that that person may try to please the experimenter and not give the answer correctly to the person who's asking the question. But in the last 2 studies that I did, before every survey, the person who was asking the question, that person said to the child that please give these answers honestly. Even if the robot is improving or not improving, we will not tell the robot, and robot will not be affected by your answers. And if you give the honest answer, then the robot, it will impact robot's learning. Robot will improve better. Just by giving this much of priming before doing the survey every time. I did the multi-session, so the researcher had to say this thing 4 or 5 times before asking this question. Just by doing this thing, children gave the answers accurately. They could perceive the robot's behavior, positive or negative, and they didn't shy away to say that the robot was not improving. So I think the priming and debriefing works for sure, and I cannot say it will work in every scenario.
Okay, thank you very much. And also, I would like also to get the canvas. I will happy to help. I really like that. So yeah, I will send you an email later. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone. This was a very nice discussion. It also dived a little bit into ethics. Perhaps we should have a talk on that topic sometime soon, because it's so important, not only in child-robot interactions. So before we go, I just want to have your attention for a minute while we do the closing. So let me share my slides and present the next speaker. So in our, wrong button. So on our next session, which will be on the 7th of May, which is next week, we'll have Chris. Let me see if I can say this correctly. We'll have Chris Mavroyanis, and he's from the University of Waterloo, and he's formalizing this. He's going to give us a talk about formalizing the structure of multi-agent domains for autonomous robot navigation in human spaces. So we are switching gears here and just switching to another topic, which I hope it would be of interest to everyone. So just to remind you about the Buy Me a Coffee platform, and see you next week. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks a lot for asking those questions. Thank you, Joanna, and everyone. It was a great pleasure to be here.
It was a great pleasure to have you, Shruti. Bye.
Thank you, Shruti. Thank you, everyone.